close your eyes and imagine this. It's 3 a.m. You're lying in bed, desperate for sleep, but there's a sound that won't stop. Low, persistent humming that seems to vibrate through your very bones. It's not coming from outside your window, not from the heating system, not from any appliance you can identify. The sound is everywhere and nowhere at once. You get up to investigate. You walk through every room of your house, checking every corner, every device. Nothing. You step outside into the desert silence of New Mexico. The hum follows you. You drive across town. It's still there. You travel 50 miles away. Silence. But the moment you return home to Taos, it begins again. Now, imagine that sophisticated recording equipment detects nothing. Sound meters register perfect quiet. Your neighbors think you're losing your mind. Doctors can't help you, yet the sound never stops, driving you to the edge of sanity. This isn't fiction. For over 30 years, this has been a reality for hundreds of residents in one of America's most beautiful towns. Welcome to the mystery of the Taos hum, a phenomenon so bizarre that it defies our understanding of sound, consciousness, and reality itself. High in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains of northern New Mexico, at an elevation of nearly 7,000 feet, sits the town of Taos, with its stunning adobe architecture, world-renowned art galleries, and breathtaking desert vistas. Taos has long been a haven for artists, writers, and spiritual seekers. The town of just 6,000 residents is known for its peaceful atmosphere and pristine natural beauty. But in the early 1990s, this tranquil paradise became the epicenter of one of the most perplexing mysteries in modern science. It started quietly, almost unnoticeably. A few residents began mentioning a strange sound they could hear, a low, droning noise that seemed to have no source. At first, it was dismissed as the usual suspects: air conditioning units, distant traffic, industrial equipment from the nearby Los Alamos National Laboratory. But as more people came forward, a disturbing pattern emerged. The sound wasn't coming from any identifiable source. It couldn't be recorded. It couldn't be measured. Yet for those who could hear it, the phenomenon was devastatingly real. Joe Mullins, a retired electrical engineer who moved to Taos for the peace and quiet, was among the first to experience what would later be called the Taos hum. A methodical man with decades of experience in acoustics and electronics, Lentz was not given to flights of fancy or unexplained phenomena. I first noticed it on a Tuesday night in March, Mullins recalled in interviews. I was lying in bed when I became aware of this low humming sound. My immediate thought was that someone had left their car running outside, but when I looked out the window, the street was empty. What followed was weeks of sleepless nights as Mullins attempted to track down the source of the sound. He systematically checked every electrical device in his home. He walked the perimeter of his property with sound measuring equipment from his engineering days. He even climbed onto his roof at midnight, convinced the sound was coming from above. The most maddening thing, Mullins explained, was that the sound seemed to move with me. Inside the house, outside the house, in my car, at the grocery store. It was always there, just at the edge of perception, but loud enough to prevent sleep. But Mullins wasn't alone. By 1993, dozens of Taos residents were reporting similar experiences. They described the sound in remarkably consistent terms: a low-frequency drone, like a diesel truck idling in the distance, or the rumble of a jet engine that never passed overhead. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a local physician, began seeing patients complaining of sleep disruption and anxiety related to an unexplained noise. At first, I thought we might be dealing with a psychological phenomenon, Dr. Martinez admitted. But when patient after patient described identical acoustic characteristics, I began to take the reports seriously. The descriptions were indeed strikingly similar. The sound was most noticeable at night and indoors. It seemed to intensify during quiet moments and diminish during busy periods. Many reported that the hum would stop abruptly when they traveled beyond a certain distance from Taos, only to resume immediately upon their return. Reports of the mysterious hum spread throughout the community. Local officials found themselves facing an unprecedented situation. Residents were complaining about a noise that didn't appear to exist. Yet the complaints were coming from credible, rational individuals, including engineers, teachers, and business owners. The situation reached a tipping point when longtime resident Katie Burke, a respected member of the community and owner of a local art gallery, spoke at a town council meeting. "This isn't in our heads," she declared, her voice shaking with frustration and exhaustion. "Something is happening in this town, and we deserve answers." Burke's testimony was particularly compelling because she had documented her experience in detail. She had maintained a log of when the hum was most intense, what conditions seemed to affect it, and how it was impacting her daily life. Her meticulous records would later prove invaluable to researchers. The mystery caught the attention of Congressman Bill Richardson, who represented New Mexico at the time and would later become the state's governor. Richardson, intrigued by the reports and concerned about his constituents, called for a formal federal investigation into the phenomenon. When you have dozens of credible citizens reporting the same unusual experience, government has a responsibility to investigate, Richardson stated at a press conference in 1996. "We need to determine whether there's a public health concern or a national security issue involved." The announcement of a federal investigation brought the Taos hum to national attention. Media outlets from across the country descended on the small town, and suddenly Taos found itself thrust into the spotlight for reasons no one had anticipated. CNN, the Discovery Channel, and numerous newspapers sent reporters to investigate. The attention was both a blessing and a curse for the town. While it brought tourism, revenue, it also brought skeptics, debunkers, and curiosity seekers who treated the residents' suffering as entertainment. In 1997, one of the most comprehensive investigations of an unexplained acoustic phenomenon in scientific history began. The research team was assembled from some of the most prestigious institutions in the country: Los Alamos National Laboratory, the University of New Mexico, the Naval Research Laboratory, and other government agencies. The study was led by Dr. James Kelly from the University of New Mexico and Dr. Joe Mullins from Los Alamos, not to be confused with the Joe Mullins who first reported the hum. The team brought an arsenal of sophisticated equipment to Taos: ultra-sensitive microphones, seismic monitoring devices, electromagnetic field detectors, acoustic analysis equipment capable of detecting sounds far below the threshold of human hearing. The investigation began with a comprehensive survey of the town's residents. Over the course of several months, researchers interviewed more than 1,400 people, conducting detailed questionnaires about their acoustic experiences, health conditions, and living situations. The results of this survey would prove to be both fascinating and deeply puzzling. Of the residents interviewed, about 2%, roughly 161 people out of 8,000, reported hearing the mysterious hum. But even more intriguing was the discovery that the hum was ununiform among those who could hear it. The research revealed that there was not a single identifiable Taos hum, but instead several different sounds that people reported. Some described it as a whir, others a buzz, and some people got the traditional hum experience. This finding raised immediate questions about whether the residents were experiencing the same phenomena or multiple related phenomena. The demographic patterns among the hearers were equally intriguing. The majority were middle-aged to elderly, with a higher proportion of women than men. Many lived in similar types of housing and were clustered in specific neighborhoods. Yet their immediate neighbors often heard nothing at all. Martha Rodriguez, a retired teacher who lived on the same street as 3 other hearers, found this particularly frustrating. "My next-door neighbor thinks I'm crazy," she explained to researchers. "We share a wall, but she sleeps peacefully every night while I'm lying awake listening to this constant droning. The researchers deployed their sophisticated monitoring equipment throughout Taos, focusing on areas where the highest concentrations of hearers lived. For weeks, they recorded continuously, analyzing every possible frequency, range from infrasound below human hearing to ultrasound above it. The results were both disappointing and mystifying. The equipment detected nothing unusual. No acoustic anomalies, no electromagnetic irregularities, no seismic activity that could account for the reported phenomena. According to their instruments, Taos was acoustically normal. The failure to detect any physical source for the hum forced researchers to develop increasingly creative theories about what might be causing the phenomenon. Each proposed explanation was more intriguing than the last, and each raised new questions about the nature of human perception and consciousness. The first major theory focused on ultra-low frequency sound waves, known as infrasound. These sound waves, with frequencies below 20 Hz, are largely inaudible to humans, but can travel enormous distances and penetrate buildings easily. Infrasound is generated by ocean waves, wind patterns, earthquakes, kegs, and even large industrial equipment. Dr. Richard Spaulding, a physicist from Los Alamos, proposed that unique geological conditions around Taos might be amplifying or focusing infrasonic waves from distant sources. The mountains and valleys around Taos create a complex acoustic environment, Spaulding explained. It's possible that infrasonic waves are being channeled and amplified in ways we do and fully understand. This theory gained credibility when researchers discovered that Taos sits at the intersection of several geological fault lines, creating a unique underground structure that might affect sound propagation. However, it didn't explain why only certain individuals could perceive the phenomenon. The second major theory involved electromagnetic sensitivity. Dr. Susan Clark, a neurologist who joined the research team, proposed that some individuals might possess an unusual sensitivity to electromagnetic fields. These people might be unconsciously detecting EM radiation and translating it into perceived sound within their nervous systems. We know that the human brain generates electrical activity, and that some people are more sensitive to electromagnetic fields than others, Dr. Clark explained. It's possible that the hearers are detecting EM radiation from sources like radio transmitters, power lines, or even classified military equipment, and their brains are interpreting these signals as acoustic phenomena. This theory was particularly compelling because it could explain why recording equipment could uncapture the hum. If the sound was being generated within the brain itself, external microphones would naturally detect nothing. The proximity of Los Alamos National Laboratory added another dimension to the electromagnetic theory. Los Alamos, just 50 miles from Taos, is one of the world's most advanced research facilities, conducting classified experiments in nuclear physics, materials, science, and other cutting-edge fields. Some researchers speculated that secret military experiments involving extremely low-frequency radio waves might be responsible for the phenomenon. ELF waves, used in submarine communication, can penetrate deep underground and travel vast distances. If such experiments were taking place at Los Alamos, they might be affecting sensitive individuals in Taos. However, Los Alamos officials categorically denied conducting any experiments that could cause the reported symptoms. An independent monitoring found no unusual electromagnetic activity in the area. A third theory proposed that the hum might be a form of mass psychogenic illness, essentially a shared psychological phenomenon triggered by suggestion and community anxiety. Dr. Robert Ballo, neurologist from UCLA, argued that once the idea of a mysterious sound was introduced into the community, susceptible individuals might begin to perceive sounds that weren't actually there. We've seen similar phenomena throughout history, Dr. Ballo noted. When people are primed to expect unusual sensory experiences, their brains can sometimes create those experiences. But this theory faced significant challenges. Hearers often describe identical characteristics of the sound before speaking to other sufferers, suggesting their experiences weren't simply the result of suggestion. Additionally, some people reported hearing the hum when they first moved to Taos before learning about the phenomenon from others, while scientists debated theories and conducted experiments. The residents of Taos who could hear the hum continued to suffer. The psychological and physical toll of the phenomenon was severe and, for many, life-altering. Barbara Chen, an artist who moved to Taos in 1994 to establish a studio, found her creative work disrupted by the constant acoustic intrusion. "I came to Taos for the silence and inspiration," she explained. "Instead, I found myself unable to concentrate, unable to sleep, unable to find peace anywhere in town." Chun's experience was typical of many hearers. The persistent nature of the sound made it impossible to ignore or adapt to. Unlike normal environmental noise, which the brain learns to filter out over time, the hum seemed to demand constant attention. Dr. Patricia Williams, sleep specialist who studied several Taos residents, found that the hum was causing measurable disruptions to sleep patterns. Even when patients thought they were sleeping through the night, EEG monitoring showed frequent microarousals associated with the timing of their reported hum experiences, she discovered. The sleep disruption led to a cascade of health problems: chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety, difficulty concentrating, and, in extreme cases, thoughts of suicide. Several residents reported that they had considered leaving Taos entirely, abandoning dream homes and established lives to escape the acoustic torture. Support groups formed among the hearers, providing crucial psychological support for people who often felt isolated and misunderstood. These groups also served as valuable research resources, as members compared their experiences and looked for patterns that might provide clues about the phenomenon's cause. It was through these support networks that residents learned they weren't alone in their experience. Similar phenomena were being reported in locations around the world, each with its own group of tormented hearers and baffled investigators. The phenomenon had been reported in many countries, including Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom, and the United States, in places as diverse as Bristol, England, Largs, Scotland, and later Windsor, Ontario. The Bristol hum, first reported in the 1970s, affected residents of this English city in patterns remarkably similar to those seen in Taos, like their New Mexican counterparts. Bristol hearers described a low-frequency drone that was most noticeable at night and indoors. The sound was investigated by local authorities and acoustic experts, but no source was ever identified. In Largs, Scotland, residents along the coastline reported a mysterious humming that seemed to come from the sea. Some speculated it was related to underwater military exercises or offshore industrial activity, but investigations found no evidence to support these theories. Perhaps most significantly, beginning around 2011, residents of Windsor, Ontario, reported a hum that was eventually traced to industrial activity on nearby Zug Island in Detroit. This case provided hope that other hums might eventually be explained. But it also highlighted how location-specific each phenomenon appeared to be. The Taos hum stands as one of the most enduring mysteries of our modern age. It challenges our understanding of sound, consciousness, and the relationship between subjective experience and objective reality. After decades of investigation by some of the world's most sophisticated scientific instruments and brilliant researchers, we are no closer to a definitive explanation than we were in the 1990s. What makes the Taos hum particularly significant is not just its persistence, but what it reveals about the limits of human knowledge. In an age when we can detect gravitational waves from colliding black holes billions of light years away, we cannot explain a sound that torments people in a small New Mexico town. The phenomena reminds us that reality is far more complex and mysterious than our instruments and theories suggest. It forces us to consider the possibility that some aspects of human experience lie beyond the reach of conventional scientific investigation, at least with our current understanding and technology. For the residents of Taos, who continue to hear the hum, the mystery is deeply personal. They live with a daily reminder that there are still unexplained forces in the world, sounds that follow them into the quiet of the night. Heard by few, but experienced by none who can prove they exist. The next time you find yourself in perfect silence, listen carefully. You might hear nothing but the beating of your own heart and the rush of blood in your ears. Or you might hear something else, something low and persistent, something that shouldn't be there but refuses to go away. If you do, remember the people of Taos. Remember that sometimes the most profound mysteries aren't found in distant galaxies or exotic particles, but in the sounds that haunt us in the darkness, challenging everything we think we know about the world around us. The Taos hum continues, as mysterious and maddening as ever. A sound that exists at the very edge of human perception and scientific understanding. A reminder that even in our modern age, some mysteries persist, waiting for answers that may never come.